All right, so I'm having a really hard time really trying to secure this USB-C because I ripped off the contacts off the board like really bad. So I have this old copper stuff that I was working on my Nintendo project, the Game Boy, the original Game Boy project. This this will make great ground. So that's how I did it yesterday. But I tried using like a really strong heat gun melting glue, but that didn't really help. Um, So I'm going to attempt to wire wrap it with this copper wire, really tighten that in that area and see if that works. All right, retro gamers. So I have a Game Boy board here. This is the newer model because my son wanted to put the new LCD. He wanted me to repair this. So originally, it started off as a project to repair the port not charging. I think the original issue was this EM8 chip was broken. It was actually broken when I saw it, when I took it apart. So it had like a crack in it. So I don't know if that affected it. So what I ended up doing was putting a new one. I'm already on my third one because these are so sensitive. So be careful. You want to make sure you use something to hold the board so that you're not rubbing the board against the ground. Okay, that's number one. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that apparently my soldering skills aren't to par, so don't feel bad if you burn your board too, like I did. I've used this copper material right here that I had for another project I was working on, the original Game Boy conversion, so that it becomes essentially a Raspberry Pi, I believe, Pico. I always get confused. It's the board that essentially lets you read a bunch of ROMs. So instead, I ended up using this stuff because of a burnt deal, and therefore my contacts were already burnt off and I couldn't use them. So I used this material, this copper material, and then it's making a good ground now. And then I wrapped copper wire through the holes of my USB-C so that it grabs good. And I think once I solder this should be more secure. Like, these wires are pretty strong. If I tighten them really nice and then I solder them, it should be more secure. And then I don't have to worry about my son putting the USB-C in there and ripping off the contacts in the board. That was my that was my biggest fear, that was going to happen. I did try using glue, like a really strong black melting glue, like for a hot gun glue, and that didn't hold. As a matter of fact, it ripped stuff off the board. So I recommend not using a hot glue on this. Usually hot glues are used on boards to secure wires so they don't move around, but there's too much pressure when you're sticking the USB-C in. So you can see it's not really going anywhere. It's moving with the board. So once I solder this down, I'm going to solder that wire down, and we should be good to go. I hope. The original idea with the hot glue didn't give enough space because I had too much gunk on here. So let's see if this works out. I did test it out prior to all this. I ran my voltage. A gentleman online showed me how to really diagnose the board. He did a really good job on the board voltage testing. And this is a ground right here. So you want to put your meter there for ground, and then, or negative, the black one, and then you want to use a positive there, and then you should get 5 volts once you plug this in. That's a great way of testing if your USB-C was a good contact. What are the thoughts I have on here? I did find a bunch of corrosion on this board, so I'm not 100% sure, and this is why I'm shooting this video. And I don't have the heat air where you can control the temperature. I think that's what he used. He put a bunch of flux on the chipsets and he was swapping chipsets out. That's some advanced stuff. I commend him. He does a really good job. I'm okay at soldering, but not that great. And so I'm afraid of taking off this chipset. This is your CPU, and I know it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but you can kind of see there's a gap right there. When I was cleaning off the gunk, I don't know if that fell off or if it was already corroding. But those three or 2 wires that are in there, I can't really tell. I'll have to look at it through a microscope. They have failed me. So They broke off, and I was just trying to brush it off with a nice light brush, and I think they're on their way out. So if this doesn't work, and if any of you see this video and you've changed this chipset before, the CPU, I hate to call this a dead board, but if this doesn't work, like, it really requires those chips, which I'm afraid, because I think there is voltage that goes through these. I believe these are, I don't think they're diodes. It might be resistors. Then I would have you reach out to me and let me know what you recommend. This is definitely one of the toughest projects because things are so small. So it does help to have a microscope. I tend to have okay eyes to look at small stuff. But another thing I wanted to show you lastly here is this copper wire. I attached it to where you're supposed to get the 5 volts on the board. And then I also attached another copper wire there with some solder, and so I'll make that connection. The reason I do it this way is so that there's no when you flex the board, you don't have to worry about. I'll leave some gap here so that you're not going to rip the contacts off of that because this port got too loose, what have you. So that just gives me a peace of mind. I hope that and that this will work out. So once I put this all together, I'll continue the video and let's see what the results are. I'm really hoping the games work even without those broken chipsets, but I have a feeling that I may have lost this board unless somebody knows how to fix those. I'm gonna keep myself positive and let's see what happens. All right, let's check the voltage. So want to be on DC. Let's check our voltage. So I got my USB-C plugged in. So you can either touch the metal ground here or touch the or you can touch any of these solder points that I made. And there's 5.13 volts. Beautiful. Ready to put this back together. I just really hope everything fits and that CPU works great. All right, moment of truth. Plug her in. And we got a light. Question is, does it turn on? We got the red light. Houston, we have a problem. So it's going to be that CPU chip, almost guaranteed. The light turned green. Bummer. Learned a lot through the process though. See if we got any sound. No sound. At least we know it's functioning. That much is true. We get in our 5 volts. So it's gonna be that CPU. All right, that's a wrap.